We treat the act of crossing the threshold into slumber as a mundane biological necessity, a routine maintenance period where the physical body recharges its batteries and the weary mind files away the debris of the day. Every night, we draw the curtains, surrender our weight to the mattress, and close our eyes with the quiet confidence that the room around us will remain perfectly static while we are gone. We assume that the street lamps, the neighborhood roads, the heavy furniture, and the overarching structures of our lives wait patiently in the dark, preserving their exact molecular configurations until we choose to reclaim them at dawn. But if you have ever awakened in the dead of night with a strange, inexplicable sense of geographical disorientation, or if you have noticed that certain details of your life, the subtle temperament of a close friend, the exact layout of an old memory, or the sudden, effortless shift in a long-standing financial bottleneck, have altered without an obvious physical cause, you have brushed against a profound cosmic secret. Sleep is not a passive state of human absence. It is a profound operational necessity for the cosmos itself. The universe quietly, meticulously rearranges its coordinates every single time you fall asleep, taking advantage of the moment your conscious observation goes offline to update the rendering parameters of your individual reality. To entertain this possibility is to completely invert our understanding of the relationship between human consciousness and the material world. We are conditioned by a rigid, materialistic framework to believe that the universe is a massive, independent clockwork mechanism that exists completely outside of us. In this conventional view, we are merely tiny, accidental observers who have been dropped onto a solid, pre-existing stage. But quantum mechanics and ancient mystical traditions tell a radically different story, suggesting that reality is a deeply participatory phenomenon. Matter is not solid. It is a fluid, shimmering field of probabilities that requires an observer to freeze it into a definitive form. Your waking awareness acts as a powerful, concentrated gravitational lens. From the moment you wake up in the morning, your attention, your expectations, your fears, and your deep-seated beliefs act as a constant, unrelenting pressure that locks the quantum soup of the universe into a rigid, predictable configuration. You are effectively holding the matrix in place through the sheer intensity of your waking gaze, because the human mind is so deeply habituated to its own limitations. This constant observation can become a prison for both the individual and the cosmos. If you spend your waking hours completely convinced that you are stuck in a cycle of poverty, that your body is inherently broken, or that the world around you is an unyielding, hostile environment, your continuous attention forces the universe to keep rendering those exact conditions, frame after frame. The subatomic particles of your reality have no choice but to obey the steady, dogmatic script of your daily perception, but the architecture of creation is profoundly compassionate, recognizing that if human awareness were locked onto the material plane indefinitely, the system would eventually crystallize into absolute stagnation. Therefore, the universe instituted the biological mandate of sleep as a grand systemic release valve. The moment your eyelids grow heavy and your conscious mind slides beneath the surface of waking thought, the heavy gravity of your observation is suddenly lifted from the matrix. The quantum field sighs in relief, expanding back out into an infinite ocean of pure, unformed potential. When you fall asleep, the universe becomes an unlit theater where the stagehands can finally move the scenery without disrupting the performance. The infrastructure of your life, the relationships that define you, the financial conditions that constrain you, the physical health that houses you, is temporarily unhooked from the fixed grid of your waking expectations. During these hours of absolute surrender, your deeper subconscious intelligence enters into a silent, complex negotiation with the overarching fabric of creation. The cosmos takes the emotional residue of your day, the hidden desires you did not dare to utter, the fears you tried to suppress, and the new realignments of identity you achieved through your experiences, and it begins to rewrite the underlying code of your timeline. It quietly shifts the trajectories of future events, realigns the hearts of the people you will encounter, and subtly adjusts the physical parameters of your world, so that when you open your eyes in the morning, the stage matches the current state of your internal evolution. This perspective transforms the simple act of going to bed into a profound, high-stakes metaphysical voyage. You are not merely resting your muscles. You are stepping out of the way so that the universe can perform its essential maintenance on the fabric of your destiny. Waking up each morning is not a return to an identical, continuous world, but a soft landing in a brand new iteration of reality, a freshly rendered landscape that has been tailor-made to accommodate the subtle shifts in your spiritual frequency. The morning light is a fresh coat of paint over a newly configured labyrinth, and the air you breathe is the condensation of a dream that the cosmos dreamed on your behalf while you were away. To understand this hidden architecture is to reclaim your status as a co-creator of existence, recognizing that the most powerful transformations in your life do not happen through frantic, waking effort, but through the deep, trusting surrender that allows the universe to rebuild your world in the dark. As we prepare to explore the deeper pillars and mechanics of this nocturnal orchestration, we must be willing to abandon the illusion of a static, unyielding world. We must learn to view reality as a fluid, responsive tapestry that is constantly being woven, unraveled, and rewoven while our backs are turned. We are embarking on an investigation into the universal cache clearing, the true nature of the astral landscape and the hidden protocols that govern how our subconscious intentions manifest as physical geography overnight. This is not a theoretical exploration of dreams, but a practical revelation of the cosmos's quietest mechanics, a guide to understanding the profound rearrangements that take place in the dark, and a transformational blueprint for learning how to consciously direct the cosmic stagehands before you close your eyes for the night. To properly deconstruct the mechanics of a reality that shifts while we slumber, we must first examine the concept of the observational collapse of the wave function. In the foundational language of quantum mechanics, a particle does not occupy a single definitive point in space until it is actively measured or observed. Prior to that act of witnessing, it exists in a state of superposition, a cloud of mathematical possibilities, simultaneously occupying multiple trajectories at once. When applied to the vast macro hologram of our daily lives, this principle reveals that the world around us is far less solid than it appears. Your waking focus acts as a constant, high-voltage measurement apparatus. As you walk through your day, your conscious attention continually forces the fluid field of potential to collapse into a rigid, singular manifestation. The traffic patterns, the financial balances, and the behaviors of those around you are held in place by the steady, unblinking focus of your cognitive expectations. You are, quite literally, freezing the universe into a specific shape through the sheer, dogmatic momentum of your waking gaze. When you fall asleep, this high-voltage measurement apparatus is completely turned off as your brain waves slide from the alert frequencies of beta down into the deep oceanic swells of delta. The localized ego drops its grip on the material plane. This introduces a profound systemic phenomenon that can be understood as the clearing of the cosmic cache. Just as a digital computer must regularly flush its temporary memory files to prevent its operating system from slowing to a crawl, the universe requires the temporary suspension of your individual observation to reset its rendering engine. The moment your conscious mind goes dark, the rigid boundaries of your physical environment soften back into a fluid, malleable state of pure potential. The house you live in, the city streets you walk, and the economic variables that surround your timeline lose their frozen solidity and return to the primordial soup of the unmanifest. The simulation takes advantage of this total absence of human focus to reorganize the data structure of your timeline, clearing away the crystallized patterns of your past to make room for new evolutionary arrangements. This leads us to the core theme of the subconscious as the true architect of physical geography. While your conscious ego is asleep, your subconscious mind remains entirely awake, operating as a direct interface with the overarching intelligence of the cosmos. The subconscious does not think in words or logical sentences. It communicates through the dense, emotional resonance of symbols, deep-seated desires, unvoiced fears, and ancestral patterns. During the hours of slumber, the universe reads the energetic signature of this subconscious reservoir, like a master programmer reviewing a script. If you spent your waking day experiencing profound feelings of unworthiness, lack, or hidden resentment, that emotional frequency remains active in your subconscious cache as you drift off to sleep. The cosmic stagehands take this energetic data and utilize the night to rearrange the subatomic particles of your upcoming day, shifting future encounters, altering opportunities, and twisting luck to perfectly mirror that internal state of lack when you wake up. Conversely, this nocturnal reorganization presents a magnificent loophole for conscious transformation, rooted in the concept of timeline intersection. Because the universe returns to a state of fluid superposition while you are asleep, your soul is permitted to navigate through alternative configurations of reality that would be completely inaccessible during the rigid hours of waking life. In the deep dreaming state, you are not merely experiencing random psychological firings. You are actively scouting out alternative timelines. You are testing different versions of your future, navigating potential paths of healing, abundance, or crisis. When you find an alternative trajectory that matches the deepest intent of your spiritual evolution, your subconscious stakes a claim on those coordinates. The universe then spends the remaining hours of the night quietly shifting the atomic structures of your material world, pulling the elements of that chosen timeline into alignment with your physical bed, so that your morning awakening represents a literal landing in a completely different sector of the multiverse. Beneath these operational dynamics lies a deeper, more unsettling concept: the illusion of historical continuity. We wake up every morning with a profound, unquestioned belief that the day ahead is a direct, linear continuation of the day before. We trust our memories implicitly, believing that the past is a solid, unalterable foundation that stretches out behind us. However, within a participatory simulation that rearranges itself in the dark, this continuity is revealed as a clever, necessary fabrication. The universe carries over your memories, your physical scars, and your persistent life challenges from the previous frame, not because they are inherently permanent, but because your ego requires the comfort of a continuous narrative to remain stable. The cosmos leaves just enough historical evidence intact to prevent your conscious mind from fracturing upon awakening. But the background details, the subtle currents of luck, the internal alignment of a difficult situation, the invisible doors of opportunity, have been completely rewritten while you slept, waiting for you to notice that the world is entirely new. By anchoring our awareness in these core concepts, we begin to perceive sleep not as a black void of non-existence, but as the very laboratory where our physical destiny is forged. We see that the waking world is merely the finished product, a hardened, crystallized shadow of the profound, fluid adjustments that take place while the machine of our conscious observation is turned off. True power, therefore, does not belong to the frantic, muscular efforts of the waking ego, but to the silent, intentional mastery of the state of transition. It is the realization that every single night is an exit orbit from the matrix of your past conditioning, and that every morning is a magnificent cosmic invitation to step out of bed and walk upon an entirely different earth, newly arranged by an intelligent universe that listens to your soul in the dark, to more clearly illuminate the silent alchemy that transforms our physical reality while we sleep. We can look to an ancient esoteric allegory preserved within the oral traditions of the island mystics. Let us envision a magnificent, infinite gallery known as the pavilion of the sleeping sovereign. This gallery contains millions of exquisite life-size dioramas, each one representing the complete material life of a single human being. Within each diorama, there are tiny, hyper-detailed models of houses, city streets, banks, and hundreds of miniature figures representing friends, family members, and strangers. The sky above each diorama is made of a strange reactive glass that is illuminated by a single, powerful spotlight emanating from the forehead of the human soul to whom that specific miniature world belongs. As long as the sovereign is awake, standing tall and gazing intently down into their personal diorama, the spotlight remains brilliantly active, focused with unwavering intensity upon the tiny landscape. The heat and light from this gaze act like an invisible, instant drying cement. Under its pressure, the miniature buildings cannot move. The little figures are locked into rigid, predictable routines, and the pathways of fortune are frozen hard into the enamel of the floor. The sovereign watches the tiny dramas unfold, weeping over the miniature hardships and celebrating the miniature victories, completely forgetting that the entire scene is being held in its rigid configuration by the relentless, unblinking focus of their own forehead light. Because the light never wavers, the diorama appears to possess an absolute independent permanence. But every evening, a great golden bell rings out across the infinite gallery, signaling the hour of the grand reset. The sovereign, overcome by a deep and beautiful fatigue, closes their eyes and lowers their head onto a velvet cushion, drifting off into a profound slumber. The moment their eyelids close, the intense spotlight on their forehead goes completely dark. Instantly, an extraordinary transformation sweeps through the diorama. Without the drying heat of the sovereign's conscious gaze, the cement of reality melts back into its original, fluid nature. The tiny marble buildings soften into malleable clay. The paved roads dissolve into shimmering rivers of liquid silver, and the miniature figures lose their rigid stances, drifting apart like clouds of colored smoke in a gentle breeze. The entire landscape returns to a state of pure, unformed potential, waiting in the dark, while the sovereign sleeps, the silent caretakers of the gallery. Vast, multi-dimensional intelligences known as the Night Weavers step out from the shadows of the pavilion. They carry large baskets filled with the emotional residue, the unvoiced prayers, and the secret heart shifts that the sovereign experienced during their waking day. If the sovereign spent their final waking hours filled with gratitude, courage, and a deep sense of internal liberation, the weavers take these luminous threads and begin to reshape the clay of the diorama. They move the miniature houses closer to paths of abundance, rearrange the tiny figures to create accidental meetings of profound joy, and smooth out the rough, rocky terrain of future challenges. When the golden bell rings at dawn, and the sovereign opens their eyes, their forehead spotlight snaps back on, instantly freezing the diorama back into solid stone. The sovereign steps forward, marveling at the sudden, unexpected stroke of good fortune that greets them in the morning, entirely unaware that the caretakers spent the night rebuilding their world to match the silent evolution of their sleeping soul. There is another symbolic narrative found within the celestial navigation logs of the ancient desert stargazers, which speaks of the great cosmic harbor. Imagine that your waking life is a heavy, massive cargo ship that is securely tied to a wooden pier in a bustling, crowded port. The thick ropes that bind the ship to the dock represent your daily habits, your social obligations, your historical identity, and the rigid expectations of the society around you. As long as the sun is up, the crew is active, and the ship is securely anchored to the physical world. It cannot move an inch from its geographical location. It is trapped in the narrow, noisy waters of the harbor, subject to the same unchanging scenery, the same predictable tides, and the same cramped conditions day after day. However, when night falls and the captain retires to the cabin to sleep, a supernatural tide, known as the obsidian current, rises up from the depths of the ocean. This current does not operate by the laws of ordinary physics. It is a stream of non-linear time and shifting probabilities. As the captain falls into deep dreaming, the obsidian current gently lifts the massive cargo ship completely off the surface of the physical harbor. The thick ropes of habit and identity do not break. Instead, they temporarily untie themselves, floating in the air like tendrils of smoke. The ship drifts out of the material port and enters a vast, misty sea, where thousands of alternative harbors exist simultaneously, each one representing a different version of the captain's life. One where they are completely healed, one where they have found their true purpose, or one where they have taken an entirely different path. While the captain's conscious mind is resting, their deep subconscious self acts as a magnetic compass, steering the drifting ship through the mist of probabilities, based entirely on the underlying frequency of their deepest internal state. If the captain has done the profound internal work of letting go of old grief and stepping into a higher vibration of self-worth, the ship is magnetically drawn toward a brand new, magnificent harbor. The obsidian current quietly carries the vessel across the dimensions, settling it gently against a completely new pier while the captain is still asleep in the cabin. When dawn breaks and the captain steps out onto the deck, the old ropes automatically drop back down, binding the ship securely to the new dock. The captain looks out at the horizon, noticing that the air smells sweeter, the sky looks clearer, and the opportunities before them have completely shifted overnight, realizing that they did not have to fight the waves of the old harbor. To escape, they simply had to sleep deeply enough to let the current move the earth beneath their feet, translating the grand, mythic architecture of the night weavers and the obsidian current into the practical fabric of our daily lives. Requires us to become highly disciplined gatekeepers of the transitional states of human consciousness. If the universe truly unhooks our physical timeline from its rigid grid every time we sleep, then the final 60 minutes of our waking day, the slippery, hypnagogic corridor where our brain waves slow from the critical alertness of beta down into the receptive currents of alpha and theta, become the most powerful manifestation window we possess. Most people treat this critical hour with complete carelessness, saturating their minds with the glowing blue light of digital screens, the frantic anxiety of late-night news cycles, or the heavy mental looping of unresolved daily arguments. In doing so, they inadvertently load their subconscious cache with raw data packets of fear, limitation, and stress right at the moment the cosmic stagehands are preparing to redesign their reality. To practically integrate these insights, you must consciously establish a sacred evening ritual that can be called the Nocturnal Boundary Protocol. This protocol demands that at least 30 to 45 minutes before your head touches the pillow, you intentionally cut the digital umbilical cord that connects your mind to the collective simulation. Turn off the screens, dim the lights in your environment, and actively signal to your nervous system that the heavy work of waking observation is coming to a close. As you lie in bed, instead of letting your mind drift aimlessly into its habitual worries about tomorrow's schedule, take absolute command of your internal dialogue. Understand that you are standing at the top of the diorama just as the forehead light is preparing to turn off. The thoughts, feelings, and images you hold in your awareness during these final fluid moments are the exact blueprints the universe will use to rearrange your material world in the dark. A highly effective technique within this protocol is the practice of timeline revision before slumber. as you breathe deeply into the softening edges of your mind. Mentally review your waking day, but do not view it through the passive lens of historical regret. If you encountered a difficult situation, a stressful confrontation with a colleague, a moment of financial panic, or an old habit you failed to break, actively rewrite the memory in the theater of your imagination. See the confrontation resolving in perfect harmony. Feel the sudden arrival of unexpected abundance, or visualize yourself responding to the challenge with absolute mastery by consciously altering the emotional memory file of your day. Before you drop off to sleep, you effectively erase the old code from your subconscious cache. You prevent the universe from using the mistakes of yesterday to render the geography of tomorrow, ensuring that the night weavers carry a fresh, elevated blueprint into the unlit theater of the night. Furthermore, this perspective completely redefines our relationship with morning disorientation, physical fatigue, and the sudden emergence of unexpected obstacles in our daily path. When you wake up in the morning feeling a strange, ethereal sense of displacement, or when you notice that a long-standing pattern in your life has suddenly shifted without an obvious external catalyst, do not dismiss it as a psychological quirk. Recognize it as the physical feedback of a successful nocturnal rearrangement. Treat the first hour of your morning with a quiet, observant reverence, walking through your environment like a traveler who has just landed in an unfamiliar country. Look closely at the temperaments of the people around you. Watch for accidental synchronicities and remain completely open to unexpected doors of opportunity. If you instantly assume that the world is identical to the one you left behind, your rigid waking focus will immediately force the fluid quantum field to collapse back into the old, familiar constraints of your past history. Ultimately, the real-world implication of mastering this nightly reset is the cultivation of a profound, effortless abundance that operates entirely outside the exhausting rules of the colonial hustle culture. The Matrix conditions us to believe that to change our lives, we must work harder, fight fiercer, and spend our waking hours in a state of perpetual, muscular aggression against our physical circumstances. But when you align yourself with the hidden architecture of sleep, you discover that the most profound shifts in your reality are achieved not through waking friction, but through nocturnal alignment. You stop trying to force the solid pieces of the world to move through sheer willpower. Instead, you master the art of sliding through the dimensions in the dark, utilizing the supreme leverage of your sleeping soul to let the universe quietly, beautifully rearrange the earth beneath your feet while you are safely resting in the sanctuary of your bed. We have traced the hidden paths of the night weavers and felt the gentle lift of the obsidian current, bringing us to the final quiet shore of our journey. We discover that the great mystery of our existence is not located in the distant stars or buried within ancient, unreachable ruins. It is fully alive and waiting for us every single evening, right at the soft edge of our own pillows. We have been conditioned to view our lives as a desperate, unending race, run across a hard and unyielding track, believing that once a circumstance is set in stone by our past, it requires an immense, exhausting amount of physical labor to shift even a fraction of an inch. But as we step out of the heavy, materialistic illusions of the daytime matrix, we are blessed with the realization that the universe is not a stubborn, mechanical cage. It is a profoundly responsive, living mirror, a fluid masterpiece that is completely undone, reset, and beautifully remolded every single time we surrender ourselves to the dark. To step into this truth is to answer an urgent and magnificent call to spiritual transformation. It demands that you stop living as a helpless captive of your historical narrative, waking up each morning to automatically repeat the habits, fears, and miseries of the day before simply because you believe the world is static. The universe loves you too deeply to lock you inside a permanent cage of your own past mistakes. Every night, as you close your eyes, the cosmos gently unclasps the chains of your linear history, clears the heavy cache of your daily struggles, and returns the entire material plane to a state of pure, breathless potential. You are offered a clean slate, a fresh canvas, a brand new earth, newly arranged by an intelligence that listens to the quietest frequencies of your heart while your mind is resting. The only thing keeping you trapped in the old loops is your own insistence on looking for them when you wake up. As you prepare to cross the threshold into slumber tonight, let this realization wrap around you like a sacred protective cloak. Disconnect your mind from the noisy, frantic projections of the collective screen and step intentionally into your role as the sovereign director of your destiny. As you feel the heavy, comforting weight of sleep begin to lift your awareness from the material grid, hold the highest, most beautiful vision of your true self within the theater of your imagination. Do not beg the universe for change. Simply feel the deep, absolute relief of a reality that has already been made whole, and then let go with complete and radiant trust. Sleep not as a weary biological animal seeking a temporary escape from the world, but as an immortal spirit stepping off the stage, so that the grand scenery can be quietly shifted on your behalf. The golden bell of the pavilion is ringing. The tide of the cosmic harbor is rising, and the caretakers are waiting in the shadows for the instructions you will leave behind in your subconscious cache. The world you walk upon tomorrow does not have to be a copy of the world you left behind today. Trust the dark, embrace the deep, beautiful mystery of your nightly reset, and step out of bed tomorrow morning with a soft, knowing smile, ready to walk upon an entirely new earth that the universe has quietly meticulously rearranged just for you.